2007 was a wild year for first-person shooters, and the holiday slate hit like a freight train. BioShock, Call of Duty 4, Halo 3. I was in 7th grade and I definitely took this era for granted, because goddamn, what a lineup. But if you noticed, none of those were set in World War II, a sharp contrast to just a few years prior. Modern and sci-fi shooters felt like the future, but there was one studio that wasn't done with World War II just yet. At EA Los Angeles, something different was taking shape, a paratrooper-driven Medal of Honor that traded corridors for open, vertical sandboxes. While everyone else kept their boots on the ground, the team at EA LA were building a game that starts in the sky and drops you headfirst into the fight. This is Medal of Honor Airborne. I just want to give a quick shout out to my channel members. For only $1 a month, you could join these wonderful people on screen. On the heels of 2005's European assault, EA Los Angeles set out to rethink Medal of Honor. The corridor formula wasn't cutting it. Too many competitors were doing the same thing, and recent entries hadn't done enough to stand out. So instead of chasing Call of Duty, EA LA pitched a paratrooper-driven game about the Airborne division, an idea some inside the studio thought would be impossible to pull off. Other games had included the Airborne before, but they usually started the mission once the soldiers touched the ground. Instead of hiding the jump behind a cutscene, the team wanted players to make it. From plane to the ground, you would have full control of your character. This wasn't going to be an easy task, and the first step would be finding the right toolset. In 2004, EA acquired Criterion Games, along with its Renderware engine. Renderware had powered a generation of PS2-era hits: Burnout, Mortal Kombat, the Harry Potter tie-ins, and even Grand Theft Auto. EA felt confident that the team could deliver a new iteration of the engine for the next generation, but a couple years into Airborne's development, it became clear that would be easier said than done. Renderware was solid, but integrating next-gen features was a challenge, and the tools lagged behind competitors. Epic's Unreal Engine 3 already had the bells, whistles, and cross-platform pipeline EA LA needed, so about 2 years in, they made the jump, delaying Airborne by roughly a year to hit the level of polish players were starting to expect. A big part of Airborne's pitch was the open-level design, that would see players landing where they wanted and tackling various objectives in whatever order they saw fit. Crafting this was a major pivot for EA Los Angeles, and they had to rebuild their entire playbook.
Scripting went out the window, along with many other traditional linear techniques we'd relied on over the years.
Technical director Mark Doctorman told UnrealEngine.com. Typical solutions like triggers that would spawn NPCs or cause specific events to fire off had to be reworked entirely to account for the fact that the player can now come from any direction. EA LA was chasing a true World War II sandbox, something few big-budget military shooters had even attempted at the time. Let's dig into the game and find out how they did. Medal of Honor Airborne features 6 missions based on real-life operations conducted by the Airborne during the course of World War II. From the invasion of Sicily to the beaches of Normandy to a secretive mission that EA was very hush-hush about until launch. Airborne's campaign doesn't feel like what you'd expect from a World War II shooter. It sacrifices the linear progression and character storytelling found in similar games, and acts more as a highlight reel of the war, with operations cherry-picked and built into massive set pieces to explore. There are some named characters, but you don't have a set squad that you jump with, and the vast majority of your companion NPCs can and probably will die at some point. The named characters typically show up during cutscenes, and triggered events like huddling with this guy during the first mission, or sitting back and watching the flak cannons explode while some exposition is given. One thing I found really interesting was that these post-objective cutscenes could be dynamic, and play near the last objective you completed. For example, during my initial run of the first mission, I blew up the guns on top of the mayor's building last, but in a subsequent playthrough, I completed the Far West objective last, and the cutscene took place there instead. Cutscenes are scattered throughout the game and have an interesting technique of using the player as a cinematic camera position. Using Unreal Engine 3, the team built seamless in-engine scenes that flow straight into gameplay. They also used a technique called a motion capture to push more natural reactions, giving NPCs simple states based on what's happening around them. It's not groundbreaking, but it's a nice extra touch. Each mission starts with a briefing of a real-life operation, giving you the date as well as some details expanding on your objectives. I thought it was funny that if you hit escape during these segments, your objective just says, pay attention. Whatever option there was to skip these, I didn't see it on my first playthrough. Then you're given an overview of the level map with the safe zones marked in green. Prior to heading out, for the first time in the series, you select your own weapon loadout. The available weapons vary depending on the mission, but you can select a primary, secondary, and a pistol. Now is probably as good of a time as any to go over the available weapons. There are allied and Axis versions of pretty much each type of weapon in the game, with the exception of the shotgun. There is only one shotgun, but that's fine because it kicks ass. For pistols, your only option for the majority of the campaign is the M1911, but the C96 Mauser unlocks just before the final mission. You could choose to start any mission with Axis weapons as well, which isn't super common in World War II games. I think a lot of the games you just start with allied weapons and you can pick up Axis weapons from dead enemies. It felt a bit odd to me that there were so few weapons in this game. In the files of the game, there are references to other guns like the M1 carbine, the FG42, but they never made it into the final release. I imagine that the last minute switch to Unreal Engine 3 basically meant they needed to cut anything extra they wanted to add, and probably even scrapped ideas that were already implemented just to get the game out by holiday 2007. Allies and Axis each have their own frag grenade variant as well, with a special third anti-tank option, the Gammon grenade. After selecting your loadout, you're in the fuselage of a transport plane, waiting to pass over the LZ. After a hectic, anxiety-filled ride over the war zone, flak cannons getting closer every second, you shuffle towards the door, getting pushed if you hesitate, then you leap. For a few seconds, the whole map spreads beneath you. You see skirmishes scattered across the level, and you've got moments to pick a landing spot. You're supposed to look for the green smoke LZs, but nothing stops you from aiming for a rooftop or dropping deep behind enemy lines. Once you're in the air and you have a good idea of where you're touching down, you need to prepare yourself for your landing. There are 3 different ways you could hit the ground in Airborne. A botched landing is basically a faceplant. It has the longest recovery time, and it's usually a death sentence if you're behind enemy lines. If you press the jump key just before landing, you flare your chute and land safely. It's faster than botched and it's pretty reliable. But if you're feeling risky, you can go for a greased landing. If you touch down from a low altitude and at a good enough angle, you could hit the ground running and pull your weapon almost instantly. This is the landing you want to go for if you're dropping deep in enemy territory, and need to get into the fight fast. Airborne's maps are carved into sectors. No matter where you land, you drop into a live pocket of combat with multiple angles of attack. The big question early on was whether or not to allow the player to land on rooftops and towers. Designing an open-ended campaign experience is difficult enough the way it is, accounting for all the decisions a player can make. The team at EA/LA wanted to go a step beyond that and introduce an element of verticality to the game you didn't often see in these types of shooters. Some team members suggested adding air pockets or wind to prevent the player from landing on certain rooftops, but those measures only seem to be implemented at the boundaries of the map, meaning everything inside is fair game. Now if you die, you typically respawn by jumping again. The game remembers completed objectives, so you don't usually lose a lot of progress. This also allows you to try and land closer to your next objective. Now, I said you typically respawn by jumping, because some set-piece checkpoints will respawn you on foot until you clear a certain section, and I'll talk about those when I go over the missions. Hidden around each level are skill drops, small parachute markers that reward precision landings. You can spot them on foot, but you only get credit by actually landing on them during a jump. These make for a fun challenge, and after hitting a couple, you'll basically have mastered the parachuting mechanics. The scale of these levels was a little overwhelming at first. Without a map screen, you have to rely on your mini-map to navigate to objectives. Objectives are scattered around the level, and you can tackle them in any order. After the main set, 1 or 2 final tasks are usually unlocked to wrap the mission. This is where the level size is sometimes tested, like in Mission 1 where you assault the same building twice. But it's not constant, and later levels make better use of space. The gunplay is arguably the most important part of a first-person shooter, and Airborne unfortunately falls short here, with the bolt actions especially feeling useless. I couldn't hit anything even with the iron sights dead on. It got frustrating, so I stuck with automatics or the shotgun, but even then I felt like there was something really off about the ADS system in this game. And I know what you're gonna say, I have shit aim. I thought for a while that maybe I was just bad at the game, it's very likely. I was having trouble articulating just why the gunplay felt so off, so I reached out to someone who I thought may have the answer. I Drink Lava created a mod called Medal of Honor Redux that recently celebrated its 5-year anniversary with a version 2.0 update. I'll get into the actual mod a bit later in the video. I thought, who would be better to ask this question to than someone who has put possibly hundreds of hours into dissecting and tweaking the weapons in Airborne. Here's a summary of what he had to say. Past 5 feet, pistols, SMGs, autos are very inaccurate. Enemies, on the other hand, feel way more accurate due to shrinking spread and sped up animation times later in the game. Mouse aim is jittery out of the box, the default lane system is bad, and hits feel weightless. Some animations fire too fast, so guns feel toy-like. There's weak screen shake, barely any hit reactions or blood, low damage, and several sights are misaligned. Scopes have heavy depth of field effects and have JPEG artifacts. He sent me all of this in a listed format with more in-depth explanations, but I think the point's been made. The game feels unfinished. The weapons feel like they were slapped together, and the developer creates artificial difficulty to make up for its shortcomings. Like how MG42s will melt you in expert mode because there are no invincibility frames. Airborne definitely needed more thorough playtesting and balancing. One weapon feature I thought was pretty interesting though was the weapon XP and upgrade system. Each weapon, even grenades, has 3 tiers of upgrades to unlock. You can earn XP simply by killing enemies with that weapon, getting bonus XP for things like headshots or multi-kills. Upgrades vary by weapon, but are usually going to enhance certain weapon traits like faster reload time, less recoil, larger magazine, that type of thing. For some reason, the 3rd upgrade for all of the rifles is a grenade launcher, an upgrade that I not only rarely used, but actually became annoyed by. Towards the end of the game, while I'm upgrading all of my weapons, I would be interrupted by the grenade launcher upgrade automatically attaching to my rifle. If I wanted to throw a grenade, I would just press G. Weapons aren't the only feature in Airborne that needs some refining. To allow NPCs to keep up with all the possible player actions and scenarios, EA/LA built a new system they called Affordance AI. The idea was to have a dynamic AI system that would adapt to the choices the player makes. Each piece of the map geometry was given a cover value, and the NPCs had access to that information. So, during a fight, enemies would decide whether to be offensive or defensive, and then head for the closest, decent cover. On paper, it sounds like a great fit for Airborne systems, but in practice, it often meant enemies scurrying away from fights, or just standing out in the open while I unloaded into them. When the Affordance AI system works, it does feel good though. I had a lot of really fun and immersive combat encounters during my time with Airborne, but I had equally as many funny interactions where NPCs just kept lining up to be knocked down. The first mission is called Infinite Mischief. After pushing the Axis out of North Africa, the Allies set their sights on Italy. Operation Husky kicked off with the invasion of Sicily. In-game, you drop into the fictional village of Adanti, where German and Italian forces are guarding AA guns across town. First job, knock out 4 cannons. 2 of them mounted on the roof of a fortified mansion in the town center. Mid-mission, you're sent to rescue a stranded sniper unit. When you reach them, a German commander calls in reinforcements over the radio. You grab a Springfield, take him out, then head back to the mansion to finish off the remaining officers. I replayed this mission a bunch while messing with the FOV settings. I ended up sticking with the vanilla version of the game anyway. That's why my first drop in my actual footage, I just beelined for the mayor's mansion. This map mixes and matches a lot of close quarters fights indoors, also a lot of medium to long range fights in the streets and alleys. The standout for me was definitely storming and retaking the mansion. There are a ton of ways to go after that objective, and all of them are fun. Following the successful taking of Sicily, Winston Churchill wanted to invade mainland Italy to take them out of the war. Mussolini had been removed from power by this time, and Italy was in talks with the Allies to pull out of the war, which happened before the Allied invasion of Salerno. The mission takes place in Paestum, Italy, built around ancient ruins, including an amphitheater. It's one of the more creative maps, turning broken columns and walls into makeshift cover. You start by securing the ruins, torch fuel containers, blow up an ammo cache, then sprint out of the building as it goes up in a scripted explosion. From there, you push through the scaffolding to a secure area and destroy the comms equipment. Right before the climb, the game hands you a shotgun, then drops you into the perfect test pit. Tight, close quarters, packed with enemies. The scaffolding section is trickier. Enemies are spread across different levels and hard to tag cleanly. Then there's peak video game logic. A padlock you should be able to shoot from your side of the fence, but no, you have to loop all the way around and blast it from the other side. Sure, okay. You link up with the demo team and get ambushed in the amphitheater. This section has a nasty bug that can softlock you. If you die during the ambush, the game respawns you on the ground in a linear segment you can't escape by re-jumping. Sometimes the fade in while you respawn is a little too long, and you just get shot and die. I didn't really have this problem because I was playing on normal, but it did still take me a few tries. Then this guy delivers probably one of the corniest lines I've ever heard.
I guarantee you, it'll be a blast.
And we destroy a few more AA guns before calling it a day. Skipping ahead a few months, we drop into Operation Neptune, better known as D-Day. While the Armada heads for the Normandy beaches, the Airborne jumps behind enemy lines to clear the way, knocking out flak and other key targets to support the assault. Your objectives during this mission are to clear out a spotting tower, destroy a communications antenna, blow up a Tiger tank, and clear remaining Nazis from the bunkers. This map features some open sections, but the majority of the combat here is close to medium range, with you spending most of your time in bunkers or in the trenches. This is also the first appearance of the STG-44, which may be the best auto rifle in the game. The shotgun was my best friend in this mission. Sure, an SMG would have handled the close quarter stuff, but come on, the shotgun is just more fun. The finale, hopping pillbox to pillbox and cleaning up, was especially satisfying. Overall, it was a solid level, and I liked seeing Normandy from a different perspective. Most games default to the beach landing for obvious reasons, but dropping in behind enemy lines and messing with the machinery was a great change of pace. In September 1944, the Allies launched Operation Market Garden, an ambitious push to seize bridges in the Netherlands and force a crossing of the Lower Rhine. In this mission, you drop into Nijmegen to secure the town and its bridge. The main objectives are simple: clear the town of resistance. This is also where the Gammon grenade shows up. You'll need them to take out a Tiger. Once you secure the area, a second Tiger plows through a collapsing wall and literally crushes 2 soldiers before you blow it up. The mission wraps with a push onto the bridge. Pick off the rocket-wielding guys, then deal with a third Tiger. I really like this level, a good mix of close quarters and long-range fights, and the bridge push with some sniping felt great. My only gripe, hanging back and lobbing Gammon grenades at a tank, isn't the most thrilling gameplay. Young Fools is where the difficulty really kicks in. You drop into an industrial complex, crawling with snipers. Ground troops are tougher now too, with plenty of them packing STG-44s. Your goals are straightforward: blow up some Tiger tanks, destroy the railgun, and sabotage the factory by taking out pressure valves and control consoles. After the first batch of objectives, you push into the rail yard and meet the Nazi Storm Elite, armored heavies lugging a portable MG42. This is where it really started to feel like a video game to me. It's so far from reality that I couldn't believe they actually included this. Facing one on its own isn't too bad, but throwing a couple more plus some grenadiers, you're in for a pretty rough time. Fresh off of Operation Varsity, the Allies have one last obstacle: a German flak tower in Essen. Small problem, there wasn't a flak tower in Essen, and nobody tried an airborne assault on a flak tower, so this is the only mission in the game that isn't based on a real operation. I don't really care though, it's cool as fuck. A flak tower is basically an anti-aircraft fortress that also doubles as an air raid shelter. This mission has you tearing one down from the top. Clear the roof, 4 AA guns and 3 artillery pieces, then deal with the half-tracks. You only have to kill the gunner. Destroy ammo lift controls, and finally detonate the ammo cache to bring the whole thing down. Needless to say, it's the hardest mission in the game. It throws well over 100 enemies at you, including 20 Storm Elites, and they aren't even the worst part. Panzer Grenadiers are hosing you the whole time. Like halfway through the mission, I had to stop playing, give it a couple of hours and come back because I just kept getting blown to hell. By the end of the mission, I was so done that I decided to just make a break for it, and I ran past all the enemies, which apparently is something that you cannot get away with on expert difficulty, so I'm thankful I stuck with normal. Climbing out of the manhole, you realize your team is dead, and the destruction of the tower is left to you. Push the plunger and watch the tower collapse as the credits roll. You've beaten Medal of Honor Airborne. Airborne also contained a multiplayer mode. At launch, there were 6 maps. 3 of the maps were remade from Allied Assault, including Destroyed Village, Remagen, and The Hunt, while the remaining 3 were reworked from single-player levels in Airborne: Husky, Avalanche, and Neptune. There were 3 game modes as well: a standard team deathmatch that most people would be familiar with an airborne variant of team deathmatch, where the allies parachute into the map and the Axis start on the ground. There's also an airborne objective mode that is similar to Call of Duty's domination game type. In a patch released in 2008, the devs included a new objective-based game mode similar to that of Search and Destroy, as well as 2 additional maps. Unfortunately, this game was released alongside Call of Duty 4 and Halo 3, which were 2 of the most prolific multiplayer experiences on the Xbox 360. So, I wouldn't be surprised if the number of people playing Airborne, even back then, was low. But it seemed to be doing okay enough that they kept the servers operational for a few years. In 2023, the multiplayer servers were shut down by EA, officially bringing Medal of Honor Airborne offline. That was until a clan called War Lions decided to revive the game, creating and distributing their own client called Airborne Revived. From what I understand, they came up with a process that tricks the client into thinking their custom server is EA's server, allowing the client to connect. I don't know the technical jargon, so I could be saying that incorrectly, I just know that it works. One of the coolest parts about Revived is how they were able to use binary editing to create custom maps like this bridge from Operation Market Garden, and this modified amphitheater that traps the defenders inside. I played a few games with them and they were extremely welcoming and willing to explain the basics of the game modes to me, since I was pretty clueless. They've also done some weapon balancing and are working on a 4K texture pack for the game to enhance the visuals. These guys have a lot of time invested in Airborne, and it's so cool to see a community coming together to keep the game alive. I'll definitely be in there playing with them from time to time, so if you're feeling up to it, please go check them out and help keep the multiplayer up and running. They play every day, and you could join them by going to moh.re and downloading the client. I'll include a link to both their Discord and their PayPal in the description and pinned comments. If you go there from this video, please be respectful. They're doing a wonderful service. In 2020, a user by the name of I Drink Lava uploaded a mod on ModDB for Medal of Honor Airborne called Redux, which aimed to modernize the game and balance the weapons so they felt a bit more realistic. Lava had been working on some tweaks for a stalker mod called Call of Chernobyl. He gathered a lot of real-life data about weapons, including studying videos of actual recoil and analyzing recoil patterns. After discovering that stalker anomaly existed, and that pretty much accomplished most of the things he was trying to do, he scrapped his project and moved on. Lava also runs a YouTube channel where he demonstrates 3D audio in various games. While recording a video for Medal of Honor Airborne, he was surprised that the game played a lot worse than he remembered. Being intrigued by the systems and mechanics, he did some digging and tried to fix some of the problems himself. Airborne had some pretty in-depth INI files, which are basically the configuration files for the game. Lava realized that he had a great amount of control over the weapon's stats and began implementing the data that he had gathered previously, porting the statistics from the M1911 pump-action shotgun, and even using the stats from an AK-47 for the STG-44. He tweaked damage values, damage fall-off, variables related to recoil, and even AI behavior. Unfortunately, the way the INI files worked, each resolution and each FOV needed its own set of INI files, leading to hundreds of files needing to be managed. This made even the smallest tweak a massive undertaking at the time. So there were only a handful of patches released, and then the mod sat quietly for 5 years. In 2025, after recording a 5-year retrospective on the mod, Lava was inspired to make a version 2.0. He implemented a ton of new changes, tweaking the weapons, enhancing the AI, and restructuring the difficulty names to align more with how they play. Casual becoming normal, normal becoming expert, and expert becoming realism. He also added support for a ton of different controller types, including gyro controls that utilize Steam input. A few more patches had been released since, but it seems like the mod is in a pretty stable place right now, and I would highly recommend checking it out if you're looking for a tougher challenge. The enemies may fall quicker, but so do you. One mistake can cost you a lot of time, so play it cautiously, and watch out for those friendly frag grenades. Medal of Honor Airborne is a fun game with an interesting premise. It's just unfortunate that it never really lives up to its full potential. With a campaign that lasts about 3 hours, the game ends as soon as you really start getting into it. The open level design, skill drops, and weapon upgrades do give you a reason to keep playing, but only if you're a completionist. I would have loved to see what this game could have looked like if EA hadn't swapped engines last minute. There were weapons cut, and I'm sure there were levels cut that are just lost to time, stuck in the renderware build of the game, if that even still exists. If you're a fan of Medal of Honor and you've never played this game, you should definitely give it a try, and if you're a fan of the game who's disappointed the multiplayer got pulled, go check out War Lions and hop in the lobby to relive some old memories. Thanks again to both I Drink Lava and War Lions. Without them, this video wouldn't be nearly as comprehensive. Go subscribe to I Drink Lava's channel and give Redux a positive review on ModDB. That's all for this one though. Thanks for watching.